I know Dave's just listening to us talk, and it's like he's got the whiteboard up there, and he's looking at every single scenario and spider chart, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, it's
Yeah.
But that is the playoff that they gave us, and that is why we discuss this stuff. It is just gold, man, gold.
It is. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Beardzone Sports Talk. My name is David. I obviously got Carlos and Scooter with me tonight. Fellas, we're going to be diving in. The nice shout out, by the way, for your Miami Hurricanes. We officially have the first college playoff bracket prediction out right now. So we're going to be breaking that down this entire episode. But before we get into all of that, do us a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, because that is the best way to continue to support us as we grow this college season. Gentlemen, I want to go through this playoff bracket, right? There's a lot of teams on here. We're on a 12-team playoffs now. But let's start with the first four. We got Oregon, we got Georgia, Miami, and then BYU. Which to me that's crazy. But Miami ACC, they're going to take that. They're most likely going to get that first week bye. Georgia SEC is the one that I have the biggest question mark about, and I want to say that probably a lot of people agree with that. What is the SEC going to look like when it actually comes down to the playoffs? Who is actually going to be in? Because Georgia doesn't have a very easy road ahead, right? They have Ole Miss, they have Tennessee that they have to get through. Beatable teams, especially if you're a team like Georgia, but they could also drop the ball. You have Alabama versus LSU. Whoever wins that game or whoever loses that game, probably out of the playoff picture. So how do you see the SEC is the biggest monkey wrench right now in this playoff picture? Am I correct with that?
Absolutely. Like, you got the whole Texas A&M at the end of the season. You got Georgia scenario. You got the Alabama scenario. And then you got Ole Miss and LSU that can shake the whole SEC up. And we'll have like 2 lost teams in the SEC championship game for the first time in probably 20 years, give or take. And then you got Vandy at 25. And I know we're talking about the college football playoff, but Vandy is playing very good ball and has the potential to shake up multiple teams in this scenario. Georgia, I think, has the easier route to the playoff. But if we look at the schedules, it looks more like a Texas-Georgia rematch now, unless Tennessee or Ole Miss or LSU does the unthinkable and win out. But you got it's really strange. Auburn's also coming on a little strong in the late part of the year. Same thing with South Carolina. Kentucky, I think, somewhere in the mix with some of these teams too. But they've kind of fallen off. I don't know about you, Carlos, but I see a Texas-Georgia rematch in the SEC championship. If we look at the scenarios and how things are playing out and how they're currently playing, if Carson Beck throws another 3-interception game, I don't think we're going to have this conversation again. Because that Georgia's defense is the only thing keeping them in the playoff, as we can tell. So, to me, again, it's Georgia and Texas for the SEC. The scenario that they have right now with 4 teams in the playoff, I find it hard to believe that 4 stay in that scenario.
It's going to be tough for them. I mean, Texas needs to win out, and they have to beat Texas A&M to get into the championship game. There's too many other variables. Georgia has the toughest. They got Ole Miss. Like you guys said, Tennessee still. But if they win out, man, they have they're going to be tough. They're going to give everybody a run for their money. And then if Texas A&M wins, they got an easy schedule after that to get into the championship game against Georgia. On there, assuming Georgia takes care of their business. So there's still so much with the SEC week to week, and it's the SEC. Like you never know. But I feel like the Pac-10's got a little bit left, but man, you just don't know. Like, this is going to go down a couple more weeks. It will get a little bit more clear after the Bama LSU game. If LSU wins, now we got another one-loss LSU team that's going to continue. Like their schedule moving forward is not terrible. They got Oklahoma, Florida, and Vandy, and Florida has just lost their starting quarterback, possibly for the rest of the year. So they're not like, they were giving Georgia a run for their money. So it's going to be interesting. This week's going to could add some clarity or just make things even harder for the SEC. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's the SEC. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I do have a question for you guys. So, what team do you see? So, Boise State, right? They're the 12th seed in this 12th playoff bracket as of right now. But are they the ones that have their back up against the wall in your head? Are they the ones? I mean, although that they are technically on the cusp of being, pushed out, are they the ones that are really having their backs up against the wall? Because we have other teams in this playoff bracket that I'm looking at that I feel like are more up against it. I mean, you have Notre Dame, obviously Alabama, like you said, Carlos. If Alabama loses to LSU, that's going to put a big wrench in them, especially with them being in the SEC. You have Penn State and Indiana as well. But is Boise State, although that they are the 12th seed in this opening playoff prediction, are they the ones that have the biggest worry, or are you looking at another team that really needs to step up their play for the remaining part of the season?
I mean, if they win, they're in. I mean, it's pretty easy for them. I'd like to see him get in since Gentry is a Heisman candidate. Like to see him showcase at a little bit higher level than what he's doing now in that Mountain West conference that he's playing in. There's not that conference is not known for defensive play, so he's able to put some numbers up. I'm unsure what he would do at a big conference. But that being that they're the at-large bid, they're that outlier. They've been in the playoffs before. They actually, they get, I think it was Oklahoma. They they've had success in the playoff in the bowl picture before. So, and it'd be nice to see that the guy Gentry get some national showcase. But I don't think so. I think they're pretty safe to being in. Boise's been taking care of business in their conference pretty well.
For sure.
The one showstopper I think happens to Boise State is if Army beats Notre Dame and wins the American Conference, and they're clearly undefeated, and they roll in at number 12. That's the only thing I could think Boise State would have against them, seeing as how they have a one loss versus undefeated conference champion, and Army being the team that defeats Notre Dame, which in the beginning of the season beat A&M and has since won out. And the other hardest game that they've played is Louisville. So, and they don't have a conference championship game. So Notre Dame, I would argue, it will forever have the harder argument to stay in the playoff scenario if they don't have a one-loss or undefeated season because of the crazy scenarios we've already bounced around. Boise State's a fantastic team. Gentry has like a Barry Sanders-ass Heisman type scenario, and undoubtedly in the Heisman conversation, and Boise State deserves to be in this playoff as of right now. And if they win out, they have the easier road to the playoff. Tennessee in that scenario, Alabama's in that scenario. I think Penn State's still in that scenario. Penn State has probably the harder argument since they lost to Ohio State, and the Big Ten has to shake up for them to even have a shot at the Big Ten championship game. Like Indiana has to beat Ohio State, and then Indiana has to lose like Purdue, and then we forget about Indiana ever again. And that would still be a wild scenario as well. But I think, to me, Notre Dame has the hardest if they lose to Army, and then they got USC the following week. That's their final two games. And then we could potentially see an Army Boise State in 11 and 12, which would be amazing for everyone else that's not a Notre Dame fan. So, plus I don't like Notre Dame, period. I think they suck, minus their secondary. That's just me being, related to some Purdue alumni.
That's just you being Scooter. So you're saying that we could potentially see, so if Army gets their win against Notre Dame, and if they continue to stay undefeated, right? Because really, if you look at the rest of Army's schedule, Notre Dame is the only hill that they really have to climb and get over
Oh,
the
yeah.
remaining part of the year. So if Army wins, they potentially could punch their ticket into the playoff. Potentially. Not for sure, but it is a very high potential that they get it in. And at the same time, they could be kicking Notre Dame out of the playoff picture because of that second loss.
Which would be wonderful. I don't know how Notre Dame gets in there. Like, join a conference, get over it. I just hate that they're in this independent status still, and they're attached to the ACC with like basketball, and
literally
baseball,
everything else except for football.
Yeah, just join. I get the money part. I get it. I get the economics part of it, but man, I just hate their schedule every year, and I just don't think they're that good of a football team. I mean, Riley Leonard, I thought would make him better. Turns out he forgot how to throw the football. He can run, great, but he's not like some of the better running quarterbacks that are out there. I just get tired of seeing their name every year tossed around in this playoff pitcher or bowl pitcher. I just think it's ridiculous.
And so, this is my bias as watching college football since I could see TV. Is there's 3 teams without a doubt that get favored in every single ranking system: Notre Dame, Alabama, and Ohio State. I don't care if your fan base is of them or not. You cannot shake the fact that Alabama, Notre Dame, and Ohio State every single year get favored. And at least 2 of those 3 teams have been relevant for the past 25 to 30 years. Thank you, Alabama and Ohio State, for making us upset for forever. And Notre Dame, you haven't been relevant since probably Lou Holtz. So, suck it.
So I have a question for you, and this might help some of our viewers, because as you guys know, I'm more newer into the college world. And so now I was just trying to figure out the conferences last year, and then that all got switched up because of this new 12-team playoff bracket. So now I'm really trying to drink water from just a freaking fire hydrant right now, trying to understand all the information coming at me. So how does this work with Notre Dame being this independent? Because they're not attached to a conference. So they would really have to pretty much go undefeated to really solidify themselves as a playoff team because they're not attached to a conference. Or do they get favored because of the name behind them? So how does this new playoff thing work for people who might not know as much as, the 2 great minds that I'm talking to right now?
They get favored because of the money. It ain't got nothing else to do with that. They got I think NBC owns their TV rights. They get a ton of money there. It's right. They haven't been like extremely relevant since the 80s. They've had some good, decent teams, but even if they were like a really terrible, like a 2-win team, they'd still be on TV every week. It's just, yeah, man, I don't get it. Like, who's watching these guys? Like, they're just that team that's ranked high every year, and they'll come in a top 10 team, and then they're going to lose that one game every year. They should win. It happens every year with them, and then they lose another game. So, and then their schedule's not tough enough to, push them, keep carrying them. So, I mean, but they do have a couple of their rival games. I mean, it's not their fault. USC's not been on par. So that doesn't help them that some other teams that they do play every year aren't there. But, they're also not going out and go, hey, Alabama, hey, Texas, can we play you guys either? You don't hear talks of that like some other schools do. Like, they're just like, we'll take our normal games and we'll, sprinkle in a USC that hasn't been good in a few years.
I mean, we can roll back the clock, though. And look at the actual foundation of football and its origination. You had Harvard and Yale, Notre Dame, and a couple other schools. You didn't have Alabama and Ohio State then. You had Notre Dame, and Notre Dame was that apex, right? They were that foundation of college football. and they brought it to its popularity. Now, and you got football Jesus and everything else. There's history with Notre Dame, and that's why they have the TV rights. That's why they have the favoritism. And yes, it's a lot of money to include the Catholic Church involved there. But until they join a conference or they go undefeated with a very competent and strong schedule, it's hard for them to see like number 1 or number 2 in the rankings, especially when you have a loss in there too. Notre Dame has historically the record in the resume to keep in the picture, but if we bring in NIL and everything else, and like Carlos, like you said, Leonard is not the quarterback that they thought they pulled from Duke, and Duke's got a very good quarterback that replaced him that can actually throw, ironically. So, and their opponents like USC and Navy, like their historical ones, they're not good this year. I mean, they're good, but they're not ranked. So you play mostly ACC schools, but you don't play really hard schools. You didn't put Clemson on there. You didn't put Florida State on there. Granted, they imploded, but you didn't put Miami on there, which used to be the convicts versus the Catholics. That's an actual old school rivalry that they could have capitalized on. They could have put like at least one SEC or one Big Ten school other than Purdue, which I love that rivalry.
But to play the devil's advocate though, really quick, I'm looking at this schedule, and they played Texas A&M. They beat Texas A&M this year. They played Louisville, who is ranked number 25. They beat them. They did. Their one loss came to Northern Illinois. Which should they have lost to Northern Illinois? Absolutely not.
Yes.
But well, okay, according to you, yes.
Well, they get Texas A&M out the gate, so the Texas A&M didn't find their identity until a couple weeks in, and then they found their identity and then they rolled with it. So they got, I feel like, a little bit of a break with Texas A&M, and they weren't sure, like with the quarterback situation, there was some question marks, and that game really helped Texas A&M, their coaching staff, like, hey, this is where we're going.
Pretty sure they beat LSU too, didn't they? Or
Texas A&M?
No, Notre Dame.
No,
or am I wrong?
No, they haven't played LSU. So now the remaining schedule though, we have Florida State, Virginia, Army, and then USC. Now I get it. Out of those 4 teams that they're going to be playing, only one of them is ranked, and it's just because Army is undefeated right now, so they're getting the national ranking. But I mean, I can understand the slander with it. I do, because Notre Dame is always up there. But at the same time, it's not like that it doesn't look like that they're a bad team. It doesn't. So I'm trying to say that I don't think that it doesn't. If they win out, they deserve a playoff spot.
I mean, it bodes well for Penn State, because Penn State's the number 6 seed going into this playoff picture, and they get Notre Dame, so it's almost like they get a nice bye week in a sense. Like, I just don't think Notre Dame is. I don't think they should be in there. I think you should have to join a conference. You want to play in the playoffs? Join a conference.
Yes, with the caveat of Notre Dame has arguably the best secondary in all of college football, and Penn State hasn't figured out how to throw the ball. So it might just be a completely lopsided game. But Penn State also did not capitalize on their one game that they had in their conference that would have solidified them in the Big Ten championship game against Oregon. I'm with Carlos. If you're Notre Dame, you join a conference, ACC, because of everything else, and the college aligns that way, and you just run with it. Like, I know a lot of traditions got thrown in the trash when the whole Pac-12 dissolved, and then Oklahoma and Texas left the Big 12 to the SEC. The whole Big East historical shuffle with ACC, Big Ten, and so forth. So Notre Dame is the last historical school in college football to make a significant change, and I can understand you don't want to break tradition, and that's what college football really is a bunch of tradition and blood, sweat, and tears about crying about your football team every single week and year. I know, but you have to change with the times. You have to evolve, and Notre Dame has to evolve by joining the ACC. There's no other way to solidify them in that scenario, or the top four, like locked in top four. Like if hypothetically, if Notre Dame was in the ACC already, they would be potentially number 4 in this scenario instead of BYU, because everyone knows Big 12 kind of gets pushed aside. Like they're the little brother of the Big 4 right now. So
I think if they're in the ACC, they got a loss against Miami and Clemson. There's a good chance Pitt beats them.
Clemson,
And I don't even
after
think
they just lost to Louisville.
Yeah, but Clemson's still Clemson. They're I got a feeling they're going to find a way to get into this tonight.
SMU. Now that could also shake up the ACC.
It's crazy when I look at this. That Indiana is just like glaringly staring back at me. Like it's the Indiana Hoosiers. It's not basketball. This is football, and they've got a chance if they beat Ohio State. That's it for Ohio State. You're out. Like I don't see how Ohio State gets back in, because if Indiana wins out and they lose to Oregon, I think Indiana still has the chance of staying in. I mean, your only loss is to the number 1 team in the country, as long as they don't get blown out by like 40. But if it's a pretty relevantly close game, I think Ohio State's out if they lose. I don't see how they make a way back in, but it's crazy to see Indiana undefeated and their quarterback is a Heisman. He's a little bit of a long shot, but I'm just like, man, this freaking Indiana team just won't go away.
Shout out to
their coach
Hoosiers,
is fantastic.
Yeah.
Like I know Dave's just listening to us talk, and it's like he's got the whiteboard up there and he's looking at every single scenario and spider chart, and he's like, oh my gosh. It's
yeah.
But that is the playoff that they gave us, and that is why we discuss this stuff. It is just gold, man. Gold.
It is. It definitely is. And I mean, like, once I can figure out how to map all of this craziness and navigate the spider web, I'm sure I'll be just as excited as you guys are. But it should be interesting. Okay, so let's wrap it up with, we got the early predictions as far as the playoff. Let's hear our early predictions. Who's winning the Natty this year, fellas? Let's hear it.
I was hoping we would not discuss this at all. Like, I have to ride or die with my boys, man. I mean,
yeah, Miami.
I got number 1 offense in the country.
Why not?
And nobody's been able to slow it down. So, I mean, Cam Ward probably going to win the Heisman. The guy's having an insane Joe Burrow-ish 2019 year. And Burrow had Jamar Chase and then JJ, which are 2 of the top 5 receivers in the NFL. So the only thing holding up the Miami side is they've got to figure out how to play defense for 4 quarters instead of a quarter and a half, and that's what's been rough for them. And they're better than what they are showing on that defensive side. So they just got to get that together a little bit. If they do, they don't have to be the top defense. They just got to be a good defense for 4 quarters. They're going to be tough to beat. Cam Ward is all of a sudden, every new NFL mock draft, there's a good chance he's going to be a Carolina Panther, or he's going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. This guy, nothing rattles him. It doesn't matter.
I like Cam Ward as well. I'm just going to go ahead and throw him.
No, I don't.
That's gross, dude. That's so gross.
I hope that does not happen to him, but this guy, he's putting up massive numbers right now, man, and I don't know. I can't see anybody beating him out right now.
Well, Carlos, I really hate to burst your bubble here, but I like Miami in the Natty and for the Natty as well. Now I know that my predictions are not very good. And,
damn it. We're about to lose.
Dude, we both went with Washington, so whatever.
Let me call Mario Cristobal.
And it's because of that guy, though. It's because of Cam Ward. I mean, I've watched this guy all year long. He doesn't get rattled. No moment's too big for him. And it just, you want to know if by looking at him if he just threw 4 interceptions or 5 touchdowns, or if they're down by 40 or they're up by 40. He's just the same guy every single play, and he doesn't care, and he's literally made for the big moments. And so I think that when the spotlight is on him, he's going to shine. And I think that the Miami Hurricanes, they're going to come back and they're going to get that natty this year. So
I don't think
that's
they're I think Oregon is the most complete team. Man,
but I think
don't
trust that quarterback.
I know he has the Cam Ward thing, because Cam will make this stupid interception like he did last week against Duke, throwing across his body in the middle of the field at the line of, the first down marker, and it gets intercepted. Against a Georgia or an Oregon or those are things he can't do. And Gabriel does the same thing. I don't think I think Beck, man, you talk about a guy who just lost millions of dollars this year. It's that kid. Like, he just can't stop throwing interceptions. BYU's BYU. I mean, I don't know enough about them. But you still have Texas looming out there. That's a good football team. I mean, Ohio State's still dangerous, but I think Oregon, if I'm being true, is that team that's like, man, they got it all together. But what would be the score if them and Miami play? Are we talking like 100 over under here? Like,
for Oregon and Miami?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I would say that the final score would be like 48-45 or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
All right.
I personally would love to see the massive chaos and have an SMU in the top 12 and Miami fall to like a 5, and then watch Army get in, and then ISU beat BYU, and then we have a whole scenario in the Big 12. But I honestly think Oregon is our natty, right? They are everything is paving the way for Oregon to not only win the Big 10 for the first time in the conference, since they had a hard enough time winning the Pac-12, and to actually go into a national championship game and win, because they couldn't do it under Chip Kelly. Dan Lanning, to me, is the ideal coach for college football. He's understood the rule book and more or less manipulated the game defensively to make sure that Dylan Gabriel has the opportunities to win the game, or to be in a position to where they're comfortable and they can spread the clock out and so forth. Dylan Gabriel's also up for the Heisman as well. I don't think he has the stats to beat Cam Ward, but they're in the same scenario, right? And I think Oregon, like you said, Carlos, is the better complete team. They play better defense than Miami. They score as many points as Miami. And I think they have a harder schedule than Miami, unfortunately. I think Miami and Oregon will most likely meet each other if things play out how we think they will. I think Miami and Oregon in the Natty is a very probable scenario, or the semifinal, right? No, they wouldn't play in the semifinal if they both. That'd be a stupid scenario. That's dumb. Sorry. If they play in the Natty, I think Oregon has the advantage, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They play pretty locked down on the edge in the corners. Cam Ward, though, is so accurate. Outside, like you said, the dumb interceptions. At one point, Dylan Gabriel did some similar stuff about the dumb interceptions and everything else. And that's where I think the coaching comes into play. Cristobal and Lanning, they have their programs set and their players set for a natty. And I'm trying to run like scenarios as we're talking here and everything else. And Miami and Oregon in the natty is very probable. Especially if we have these multiple loss SEC and then Big Ten shakeup too. It could happen. I think, like I said, Oregon to me looks better, not only statistically as a whole, but like when you watch their tape, they look better at being in sync on both sides of the ball. If it comes down to special teams, I think both teams kind of suffer, honestly, though. But I like Oregon, man. Give me some Ducks in those beautiful uniforms in the Natty again. I know Mariota couldn't do it, but maybe Dylan Gabriel can, and with Dan Lanning.
Well, if Dylan Gabriel can do it, then I mean,
he's played in every conference.
But I don't like him. I don't like him. So I'm not a big fan of him. I don't think he's gonna be a good quarterback in the NFL. Everything about it.
He would technically be a Lincoln Riley product.
Cam Ward.
Yeah, he's not. I don't see him translating the next step. But
Cam Ward,
he will always die on that hill.
Cam, I do. So, I think Cam has to go to the right team. But that's another episode. But yeah, I think he translates a lot better. The guy's got. There's not a throw he can't make at any angle. Like that arm is made of rubber.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
He's built for this, and he really is, and that's why I like Miami to win the national championship, because I feel like that they're just built for it. Now, granted, whoever they play, I mean, hopefully they're not going up against like a super solid defense, because
they're going to have to go through either potential teams are Texas, Alabama, and Georgia, Penn State. I don't think Notre Dame makes it past the first round, but they're gonna play some defense. I would love for Notre Dame to somehow pull off some upsets and get there. I would love that for Miami. Somehow Notre Dame gets past Penn State, if that's the way it falls out, and then Georgia, if that's the way it falls out. And I would love that. But at the end of the day, I mean, you might see Miami. I mean, these seedings aren't set. Miami's the 3rd seed. They could potentially jump to the 2nd seed on there, and then we're talking a whole different bracket. If they went out and Georgia lose, and there's all this SEC clutter that there is right now, it could fall out to where they're 2 seed. I think Oregon's locked in at the number 1 seed. I don't see that losing.
3 weeks.
The spider web continues.
3 beautiful weeks of football.
Yeah.
4 with the championship.
Right.
Oh,
gosh, man,
I can't wait.
We're down the home stretch. We're, the holiday seasons are coming. It's getting darker.
Good beer, too.
Earlier now. So, good beer's coming now. So, shout out to, all the seasonal beer drinkers out there. So, but let us know down in the comments who you guys have. Who do you see someone making it into the playoffs that aren't currently in this opening prediction bracket? Do you see someone getting kicked out? Let us know down there in the comments. We definitely want to hear from you. Follow us on all of our social medias. We are on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We love to engage with you guys and banter back and forth on there. Scooter, he just goes on there and just stirs the pot, and then he just sits back and eats the popcorn and watches the chaos ensues. So, but we definitely appreciate all the support and the love that you guys have continued to support us. Do us a favor, hit that like button. If you are still watching, definitely hit that like button. Turn on that notification bell, so then that way you do not miss a single episode this college and NFL season, as our NFL episodes come out every Friday at 9 a.m., as our college episodes come out on Wednesday at 9 a.m. So, but until next Wednesday,
Beardzone.